So, Two-Bit, welcome to the Crypto Princess channel. How are you today?
I'm brilliant. Thank you for having me. I've seen a number of your shows, so I'm excited. I feel super honored to be sat here, and look, I can't wait to share my story with you.
Oh, I'm going to love hearing it. So, Two-Bit, the residential question that I ask everyone is, or all my guests, is if I was to meet you in high school, what kind of person were you?
Yeah, great question. So I was always the kind of geeky guy at school. I always did my homework, always tried to do my best. But I was always the one that was looking for opportunities. And in fact, when I was at school, I used to have contracts with other kids, and my mum would make ham sandwiches. I would bring pack up lunches. Yeah, always looking for an opportunity to maybe make a few pounds here and there, and sort of really just business oriented, I think is probably the best way. And that was from very, very early on.
So, a lot of time passed between high school and 2016 when you first got into crypto. What did you do in between?
So I finished school, went to go and do a university degree. Felt like that wasn't really for me. Felt like it was something I wanted to get kind of into the real world and start to kind of, I guess, earn an honest living, I think is kind of what people say. And yeah, I went into a very traditional role, of which I still do now. I'm still in the retail sector. I've been in there for a number of years now. But, I always felt like I wanted to do something a bit different. Always felt like, running my own business, being my own boss was kind of a desire, but never really kind of understood where I wanted to go with it. It's quite difficult to, build your own business in the retail sector. But yeah, and then it brought me to the crypto space, shall we say, a little bit later on.
Okay, awesome. So you got in towards the tail end, from my understanding, the tail end of 2016.
Mm-hmm.
And then 2017 was the second bull run for Bitcoin. It was an amazing bull run. We went from $1,000 to just under 20,000 US dollars. Tell me about how you got into crypto.
Yeah, so I'm your typical first-time investor in cryptocurrency. I think the terminology people use are normies. So I was the person looking for a quick buck, looking for how I can make my capital work. And I found a platform called BitConnect. Now, some people have heard of it, some people haven't. It was basically what turned out to be a pretty big Ponzi scheme, which I think most people know about. Ran from 2016 to 2018. And I was drawn into potential high yield returns, the how can I take a small amount of money and turn it into a big amount of money. And the honest answer was it was great while the platform was there. The longer term, though, it all fell to pieces. So yeah, I mean, I was looking at my wallet the other day and I was investing like 0.2 Bitcoin into this, platform that unfortunately, took all my money in the end. So I was a very early investor into particular BitConnect, but equally at the same time, I lost everything that I invested into crypto that year.
What about any support? When you first got into crypto, did you have any support?
No, so it was very much a kind of see what happens. I'd always been curious about mining. It was something that the whole kind of mathematical side of it and how people go about it was always curious. A friend of mine actually was he had a magazine subscription to some sort of music magazine, and so I'd heard of Bitcoin, but I hadn't really bothered with it until I'd sort of seen this platform, and it was very much the YouTube Ponzi scheme, multi-level marketing push that I'd seen that had captivated me. And look, following bad people and following the hype, I think is something that has learned, and certainly we'll go on to talk a little bit later about why that's shaped my way I am in this space, but. Yeah, not a lot really. I mean, 2017 was a crazy year for Bitcoin. Like you said, 1,000 to 20K. Everyone was making money. Everyone was just putting money in that was going, to the moon. People were moving out of Forex and derivatives market. And yeah, it was crazy. It became mainstream. People were talking about it. So it was kind of just part of the wave. But yeah, it's pretty sobering when everything you've put in suddenly goes to zero. I think that's a real harsh lesson that I recommend people learn, but maybe not for the amount of money that I think some people do lose.
What about your family? What did your family think of you entering into the crypto space?
Yeah, I
And you
mean,
live advice, don't you?
yeah, I mean, I'm Yorkshire born and bred, so we like to scrimp and scrape, and we'll use a tea bag twice and all that kind of stuff. So, my family just joined internet banking about 2 years ago, so that probably gives you an idea of where they are. Don't understand it. My dad doesn't like things he doesn't understand. He still calls it magic internet money. So yeah, very much a lone soldier. They've, worked in the, manufacturing industry for a number of years. My mum worked in the kind of retail sector for a number of years. So yeah, they to this day, in fact, still don't understand it, even though I've done the old Christmas dinner, talk about cryptocurrency, why it's going to be important. But yeah, I mean, they were pleased they just got internet banking 2 years ago.
So what about your wife? Was she quite supportive, or was she on the sidelines?
Yeah, so again, she's been really supportive in terms of the journey, really supportive in terms of kind of what we've done. I've always had a very strict rule when it came to investing, which was I never invested anything that was kind of to do with the house or to do with us as a couple. It was always my money and I could choose what I wanted to do with it. And my choice with that was always investing and was always trying to make that capital work rather than taking loans out, credit cards out, doing any sort of crazy things. I live by the absolute standard of don't invest more than you can afford to lose. And I've always held that, even to this day now, it's risk versus reward, which I always talk about. So yeah, I mean, she doesn't really understand it too much. I think she sees the opportunity. But I think she's sort of gone into the world of, well, I'm in it. I'm very deep into it. I understand it. She'll just let me go and do it and see how it all plays out, I think, over time.
So in 2017, you invested into an altcoin. What about Bitcoin? Did you not buy some Bitcoin?
Yeah, so Bitcoin was kind of the thing that everyone used. I mean, if you think about where we are now in terms of the number of coins that are available, Bitcoin was always just what you had. And Bitcoin was what everybody wanted. So whether that was, BitConnect as an example, whether it was subscriptions, everybody wanted it. It was probably the first time we'd really seen, I think, Bitcoin come a little bit more mainstream. So yeah, I bought some Bitcoin at the same time as I bought some Ethereum. And I've never been a big Bitcoin maxi though. I've never been someone who is all in on Bitcoin. I have some and I kind of save some for my kids. I put some in a wallet every single month. But yeah, I wouldn't say I'm a super crazy Bitcoin maxi. Much more altcoins, much more angel investor, that kind of first opportunity that you come in. So yeah, I wouldn't say I've got loads of Bitcoin, but a little bit.
And angel investing is something that you did afterwards, isn't it? Let's talk about 2018 now. So we had the bull run. So you got into Bitcoin in 2016, which was a halving year.
Yeah.
2017, we had the parabolic bull run. 2018 was the bear market. Were you aware of the difference between a bull market and a bear market?
No, again, I super naive to the market. And what was worse is the reason that now looking back on it, the reason BitConnect folded was exactly the reason you just pointed out. We went into a bear market, as many people will know if you've been invested for a number of years, even just take the last 4 years as an example. It went down. So all I saw was the fact that my money was dwindling away, that I was just losing money. And at that point, I walked away from the space. I'd invested. I was definitely over leveraged in terms of the amount of capital I'd put in. I'd put in a lot in terms of just what I had in some other investments, and to see your money just go to zero. And I remember it really clearly, December 24th, Christmas Eve. I remember watching the wallet just drain down, and I'm sort of sat there thinking, hold on a minute. There is, in them days, I was much younger than I am now, but it was quite a bit of money, and you're just thinking, how is this possible? And those moments and, shape you, I think, for the future. So yeah, 2018, I was out of crypto. I wanted nothing to do with it. I was very much in the world of, it is exactly what I think a lot of people would say, which is it's a scam. And I didn't understand it. That's the fact of the matter is at that point, all I'd seen was capital that I'd invested go down, which is, you don't see that anywhere else. Traditional finance, savings, general equity in properties, you don't see money going down. But in this space, as we both know that it can quickly turn the opposite. The highs are brilliant. The lows can be really challenging as well. So yeah, 2018, I was done. I was out of here.
Okay, so we'll leave 2019 because you were out of the market in 2019. You came back to the market in 2020. So 2020, we had COVID. We had a major correction in March when Bitcoin fell 63% from 9,200 US dollars to 3,800 or something similar to that. We had people dying everywhere. We had, obviously, COVID, people are dying everywhere. Nobody knows what's really going on. There's a lot of conspiracy theories. Is the government to be trusted? Is it not to be trusted? Businesses were closing down. People were losing their jobs. People were losing their homes. It was a very difficult time to be in the market and to be out of the market and in everybody's personal life. How did you come back to crypto in 2020?
Yeah, it's a great question. And the reality is the sector I work in was very people focused. So I don't like to use the terminology on the front line of COVID, because I would absolutely, keep that back for the nurses and doctors that were doing that. But, the sector I were in, I was in retail, I was customer facing. And, so during my day job, I was very, methodical, not very sociable, because you couldn't be at that point. It was all a bit strange. And all of a sudden, YouTube exploded. Meme coins came kind of bursting onto the scene. Shiba Inu, Dogecoin, everyone knows Saitama kind of came out, and it piqued my interest a little bit. Obviously, the market started to recover a little bit. You sort of look at back end of 2020, and it started to kind of rally back up once again. So I was kind of thinking, that I have some of this cryptocurrency somewhere. I have some of it, and I've kept, fortunately, on a cold wallet. I'd removed it. I didn't have it on exchanges. I sort of got that relatively early on in the space. But I was buying Ethereum at $70, $80. And all of a sudden I'm thinking, okay, all these meme coins are paired with Ethereum. Like, what does this mean? And like I said, right at the very start, I'm curious about things. I like to be involved in things. I like to get involved in things as they kind of start to build out. And so, yeah, so at that point, meme coins sort of got hold of me, really. And I started to kind of watch a couple of people on YouTube and sort of see what the whole meme coin sector, but being very cautious about the fact I'd lost a significant amount of money when I was in the BitConnect scam. So dipped my toe in a little bit. And like anyone, I think, you end up putting a little bit in. Shiba Inu was one for me that I think was a very small amount of money that turned into a substantial amount. I think it was like $100 or something like that. And, when you walk away with a couple of thousand, it's a bit like, how does that work and transpire? So yeah, back into 2020, got excited, and then meme coins kind of exploded. And then, yeah, I was sort of all in then. I was all ready to kind of see what happens in this market.
Okay, awesome. So let's talk about 2021 then. So obviously 2021, the third Bitcoin bull run. It was a lovely bull run when you look at it in hindsight, but when you lived through it, it was very difficult. We went straight up at the beginning of the year in Q1. In April 2021, we hit the local high of 64,000 US dollars. The China FUD hit, and then Bitcoin dropped 50%, and it ranged for a good couple of months at 30,000 US dollars, thereabouts. Bitcoins were taken off the exchanges, and as a result of the supply shock, Bitcoin went up again in price, and it made the actual all-time high in November 2021 at 69,000 US dollars. We had inflation concerns, and the SEC stepped in, issuing Wells notices to both crypto exchanges and projects. And then that then led to the bear market. That was a whirlwind of an experience. It was your second bull market. What, tell me about that?
Yeah, I mean, look, 2021 was crazy, I think, for a number of reasons. However, I think at the same time, it was such an exciting time to be in this space that decentralized finance all of a sudden started to come to the fore. You exactly as you said, you had the SEC really going after kind of exchanges. There was still all the noise around Mt. Gox and all that kind of stuff. So, for me, it was kind of, I was in the meme coin sector. I just started to really build out my YouTube channel again and started to kind of get involved with that and get involved with communities. And I guess unlock the real core of what is great about cryptocurrency, which is you just surround yourself with good people. And if you can find like-minded people that really are in tune with what you want to do, it's such an exciting time. And it's why I'm super excited about this bull market. But yeah, 2021, invested in Shiba Inu, starting to talk about meme coins. Saitama was another one that was going crazy. While at the same time, you were kind of at the other side, really struggling to understand how these people were so against it, why there was such a tangible reason that people didn't want to invest in it. One side, you've got this super overhyped market that's really excited. Anyone that was in Shiba Inu, I mean, that thing went from something, I feel like, I don't remember exactly what it was, like 5 or 6 zeros, broke up into, I think, another couple of people making huge sums of money. Yeah, 2021 was crazy and probably set the blueprint, I think, for what certainly people expect of it. We saw huge amounts of people flowing into the market, brand new people coming to the space. And that was where I really flourished, I think, on my YouTube channel. It's where I really got my kind of taste of community. And that's where I think meme coins really do a good job, is they really do sort of bring a community together. But yeah, it's wild. 2021 was crazy. It really was.
We'll talk about your YouTube channel in a moment. For those people who are unaware, a meme coin is a piece of code. It lives on the blockchain with a JPEG. It doesn't have any utility. So you have meme coins, and then on the other side, you have utility coins and tokens, some on their own blockchain, some on other blockchains, and they do provide some utility. Why did you go into memes especially and not utility? Any
Yeah.
particular reason?
Look, I think meme coins are the gateway to anything. It's like penny stocks in investing in, forex markets. They are just the easy accessible. You get a lot for a little, which if you're from Yorkshire like me, that's a good thing. We like to take a lot from from a little. And I really did enjoy the community sentiment of it. I still do. I'm much more savvy in terms of understanding it. But, meme coins really do embody the community sentiment. At the same time, they can obviously be high risk and they can be very, very challenging to be involved in. But I think that meme coins opens up the doorway for people to understand what blockchain is, how you get into it. I'm going to give you a little plug here, but I would definitely recommend watching your shorts because you break down a ton of blockchains, a ton of what they're doing on there. And I think that's where people get to. So I came in buying meme coins, buying kind of all these basic coins. And then all of a sudden you start to look into things like Chainlink and you're like, oh, that technology side of it is just something I'm not bothered. I'm focused on pounds rather than, I guess, longer term. And that's where I think it evolves. That's where it develops. I think most people go down that avenue as well. So, but yeah, memes were just the easy, accessible, get a lot for a little. And as a true Yorkshireman, it's hard for me to pass that up.
Okay, awesome. So let's talk about April 2021. So that was the first peak. China FUD hit. And then you kind of see your portfolio all of a sudden in the middle of the bull run cut in half, or probably even more than that, actually, if you're in meme coins, much more than that. How did you cope when you saw that? Did the 2018 come back to mind when you lost all of your coins and your
Yeah,
money?
100%. One of the things I always say about the 2021 bull market is I wasn't savvy about taking profits. I was absolutely bought into the hype that this was going to make me be able to retire me, my family, the next generation of 2-bits for the next 20 years. And again, it's all learning in this space. That's why it's great having these sort of conversations, because it allows people to understand emotion in the market. And I was bought into the hype and the emotion of it. One of the things I always said is I definitely didn't take enough profits on the way up. I still took some out. So although, my portfolio was painful to watch, because you were kind of, again, back to 2018, how is this all going back? For me, that spurred my education side of things. So it was a case of understanding, go and learn how to read contract code, go and learn how to understand technical analysis and how charts operate, go and understand some of the fundamentals that sit beneath crypto and why Bitcoin will be here for the foreseeable future. And in my opinion, will change the way that we operate financially across the globe. I absolutely believe that. And so once you sort of get to that place, not being over leveraged in meme coins, not being completely 100% portfolio in sort of crazy stuff, then you can be comfortable at where you are. And I think that's where I got to in 2018. It was a bit like this market's very manipulated. The China FUD, to your point, you kind of go, well, this all feels a little bit strange. And then I would double down on, I had a community. I was live streaming every day of, 50 people, let's say, for example, who were all then coming to a consensus that this market is not done, that people were analyzing it and understanding it. So, but yeah, I mean, they're the times. Then we always say that, you always make your most money on the second or third bull run. You never make it on the first one, because that's the opportunity to make mistakes, to learn, and really surround yourself by people that are going to give you as much education while at the same time be a conscious and a voice. I think it's important. So many people buy into hype. I was absolutely one of them. And there's so many people out there that will sell you hype for free. Sometimes it's worthwhile taking a step back and really understanding the emotion that sits within this. But yeah, that was fortunately it went back up. Otherwise, it would definitely be a totally different story today. But yeah, fortunately it went back up.
Let's talk about, before we get onto the community and the YouTube channel, let's quickly talk about November 2021. So yeah, we had the actual all-time high for Bitcoin in November 2021. A lot of coins had already made their all-time high. Some of them made their all-time high after November 2021. Were you able to take profits then?
Yeah, so look, I was very fortunate. I was early on into things like Saitama. I was invested in some top end, what I would deem as really good altcoins. which are very different to how that market looks now. I was in things like Dash, Monero, which did
Mhm.
very, very well. Privacy coins embodied kind of the whole cryptocurrency market. So yeah, I still stand by, and I would absolutely be honest in saying this, that I didn't take enough profits. I absolutely sat on the sideline. I round tripped a number of bags actually, and where you sell them at the bottom end. I was scammed on a number of coins, but I think it's always sensible to understand what your plan is through that market, and something I always talk about, to make sure that when that comes around again, you do it. I didn't go in with a plan. I didn't go in with a strategy. I went in with the age-old the angel first-time investor, which is, I'm just going to make so much money by doing not a lot. And I think, that's very different to today. That's very different to how it's been over probably the last, 2 or 3 years, really, of, since kind of that 21, because there was so much money available. The market was absolutely, exploding. You could put your money into whatever you wanted, and it was, it was skyrocketing. You were, every single day was a, 4 or 5% gain. And don't forget that point as well. People were mining, 900 Bitcoin a day. So even the supply was, was kind of strong as well. No one had heard of the ETF at that point. No one cared about ETFs at that point.
Mhm. Let's talk about your YouTube channel, because you
Yep.
started to make crypto content in 2021. What made you get into the YouTube channel? Or what made you start the YouTube channel?
Yeah, so I think this is where your values and mine align really, really well. My view was, I was watching some people on YouTube, and they were hype machines. They were absolutely monetizing their community at the best and most opportune moment they can. Patreon groups, membership fees, Discord courses, whatever it was. If you were brand new to crypto, exactly as I was back in 2017, you were buying into hype, and people were launching coins. They were talking about coins, and people were just losing a ton of money. And I thought, this doesn't feel right. Like, this isn't why people should be investing in this market. If we're truly going to make a difference, then we should make a difference. And so I just started a YouTube channel, which was very much me talking just about things that were on my mind. But I vowed from day one, my very first video, and some of my community will remember what that video was. It was so bad. But I vowed at that point, I'd never monetize the community. I would never turn memberships on. I would never be a Patreon, person that people bought in. I just wanted people to come together and talk about things that I was really passionate about, which was investing in cryptocurrency, the future of what it looked like, finding good projects, being really honest about what things were. I started off that if I talked about a project, I was invested in it as well, which was really important for me. That simply can't be the case anymore. That, I'd have hundreds of small bags of cryptocurrency, some probably worth, not a lot, and some maybe quite beneficial. But so then since then, it's always been the same. We've never sort of swayed from that. Just good people that really want to do good in this space.
So I know you angel invest as well. Can you tell the audience what an angel investor is and how you got into doing that?
Yeah, sure. So YouTube affords a platform that a lot of companies, projects, the best way I can describe it is, if you launch a project, you need people to be aware of it. So I've been very fortunate that as the channel's grown, you're offered opportunities to get into projects, or that you can see projects coming down the line, maybe slightly earlier than other people do. A lot of projects tend to be mainstream when they're already kind of overhyped and a lot of people get into them. So, being an angel investor is connecting with the right people, being involved in certain communities, Discord groups, Telegram channels, and investing very, very early on. And I think it can be very, very risky. You can get into projects that the developer, all they want to do is pull money out. I've been into projects that were absolutely destined to be huge, and the dev pulls the money 3 days after launch. And those were, things were in super, super early. At the same time, I've also been in projects where I've got in them very early, and you sort of can be part of that journey that then, builds up. So, angel investing is just as simple as getting in as early as you can. And I think whenever you see things on mainstream media or overhyped on YouTube, you're kind of late to that party. It always depends. Only a small percentage of those will ever really do huge things. When you hear all these stories of, well, I invested, $100 and I turned it into 50,000, they are very, very, very rare, very rare. But the earlier you can get into projects, generally speaking, the better they are. Having a platform, a social media platform, or anything that's marketable allows you a little bit of opportunity to get into these earlier. I wouldn't say that, I've always been really conscious that I don't want to take deals that are all in tokens. I'd rather buy into a project. Just, you get the opportunity to get into these a little bit earlier. But I'm always really transparent, though. I share it all with my community. I make sure that if we do have an opportunity that the project's comfortable, my community know about it, probably the day after I know about it, really.
Tell me about 2-Bit. How did you get that name?
Do you know what? Not many people ever ask me about this because everyone thinks that it was a rip-off of BitBoy Crypto, and it really wasn't. When I first started getting into this space, when you try and understand, okay, why am I going to put my hard-earned money into this particular project? And so many people go, well, because that YouTube channel said so, or because my friend said so. And I set myself a precedent, which was I want 2 bits of information before I invest in anything. So what's the project setting out to do and who is running the project? There were the two things that didn't matter what it was that I was investing in, whether it was going to be, something on an Ethereum layer 2, whether it was going to be a Solana coin, or whether it was going to be the biggest meme coin. Okay, who was doing it? And what was the purpose of it? So then when I was kind of building the channel, it was like, okay, what am I going to call myself? I think originally I called myself Crypto Mike, which is terrible. Like, I mean, it's just, there's like so many people that are called Crypto Mike as well. And then I thought, well, 2 bits of okay. And then it just kind of happened. And it's been there ever since, 3.5 years, never changed it.
Awesome. We'll talk about your community towards the end of the show. That was 2021, an amazing year for you. A difficult year, an amazing year, nevertheless. Let's talk about 2022. So obviously after 2020, halving year, 2021, the parabolic bull run, 2022, bear market. Were you more prepared or better prepared for this bear market?
Yeah, 100%. Understood what it was, really started to dive into what the Bitcoin cycle is, understanding what a 4-year cycle looks like. You start to connect and you start to look at news stories and you look at financial markets way different than you ever did. I mean, when I was at school, I was very much science-based learnings. When I sort of went into the job market, very retail-based. All of a sudden, I was curious about charts. I was curious about what was going on in the news. I was curious about interest rates. I was curious about the cost of goods, because all of that affected what was happening in those markets. Obviously, then you start to really get into nuances of things like exchanges collapsing. How does it happen? Again, you reminisce back to 2018 again. But yeah, so much more prepared, so much more comfortable as well. I mean, the bear market, I was very much in stablecoin by that point. Again, I reiterate the point, I didn't take enough profits, but I was in stablecoin. I was very comfortable where I was. I've never really cashed anything out of crypto, really. My view has always been at the point in which I cash out is probably the point, potentially I would sort of dial back things. So yeah, I was really comfortable at that point. And again, understanding what was happening in the market, researching really heavily, putting myself through technical analysis courses, trying to understand charting a little bit differently, understanding macroeconomics, trying to teach myself how does GDP affect financial markets, and used the bear market to really educate myself, really make sure that when the bull market once again came round, according to the 4-year cycle, I was really prepared for it. So bear markets are great to educate, refresh, recharge the batteries. And I've always said this, bear markets are so much easier than bull markets, so much easier. Just buy good projects, cheap. Bull markets are way more difficult to navigate through.
It's so difficult taking profits. People outside of crypto don't understand that. Okay, awesome. So we had November 2021, the actual all-time high for Bitcoin, $69,000, dipped into a bear market. We had many black swan events like Luna, FTX, Celsius, Voyager, etc. Everything went down, price declined. In November 2022, we had the actual bottom, bear market bottom, where Bitcoin priced out at around about $15,000. Were you aware that we'd hit the bottom?
Yeah, so I'm actually on record. I believe on one of my YouTube lives of, I think I looked at it, 15,600, I believe was the price. Solana was $8. And I remember being on live stream saying, guys, this is your last chance. Like, we absolutely have to get positions in some of these players. And I was buying crypto live on YouTube to show people how to do it, where to go and do it, what I was looking at. And I was metaphorically screaming at the community and putting videos out saying, look, Solana at $8, like you absolutely have to be looking at this. XRP at 35 cents. I mean, my community were like, I can't believe you haven't bought XRP, like buy it. And I remember buying that live. So at that point, it was almost like we couldn't go any lower. you'd had an FTX collapse, Luna had collapsed. The news was everything was negative. Gary Gensler was on his, charge to really bring the markets down. You had everything you could possibly think to try and diminish and abolish this market. And I remember sat there with a friend saying, yeah, but Bitcoin's still at 15,600. However you look at this market, it's still at 15,600. Well, as long as it's there, I think we've got an opportunity in this market. And I just remember saying to people, we absolutely need to take this opportunity. And fortunately, it was the right decision, and it's turned out to be very beneficial for a number of people, actually, which is good.
I'm actually quite surprised you talked about Solana there. Now, I got into Solana at, I think it was 15 US dollars, and I think it went, like you said, it went down to $8 US. Everybody was calling it dead. At this particular time in the bear market, at the bottom of the bear market, I presume you had gone from meme coins to utility coins. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I was very much in the world of having the majority of my portfolio in what I would deem as top tier projects, all your kind of top 50, and then having a small percentage. You hear a lot of people talking about diversification in portfolios. That's where I got to. So it did take me the best part of about 6 years to get to that point, but I got there eventually. And I would have a bit on the side that was kind of my meme coin, angel invest in some new coins. But then at the same time, it was, okay, where do I think this market's going to go? Where do I truly believe some of these projects are going to go? And, you sound like you had the same sort of epiphany with Solana that I did, which was everyone's writing it off. Everyone thinks this is going nowhere. This is a steal at this price. Like, Solana's going to be huge. And you could already see at that point that Solana was going to build some pretty exciting things. I got into a couple of projects that were all about decentralized swaps, much more tech savvy than, okay, this is a dog on a coin and let's buy it and see what happens. It was almost a transition to, I'd say, similar to where I am now. 85% of my portfolio sits in top 50, top 100 cryptocurrencies. The rest is kind of diversified based on risk. So yeah, at that point, I was very much in the kind of altcoin, new tech space. I sort of started to learn a little bit about airdrop farming, which I still wouldn't ever say that I'm very good at, but you start to understand staking and what that does, high yield returns. That's where I think the market opens itself up for the longer term investor. And I think that's probably where I put myself now.
Okay. So just before we talk about 2023, which is such a boring year, if I'm completely honest, the price starts to go up in 2023. In 2022, you had an experience trading, didn't you? Do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, of course. I would never deem myself as a trader, as much as I talked about learning markets. And this is where the market can humble you and keep you very honest, I think, sometimes. And you almost understand a little bit that you're a small fish in a very, very big pond in this place. So yeah, I'd sort of learned a little bit about markets. I tried to get my head in the game of becoming, I guess, a futures trader, but I sort of liked the idea of margin and leverage. And all of a sudden I can put, a couple of thousand into this trade, and then I can leverage it on high leverage, which, just if anyone's not sure, is almost a multiplication of what you've put in. The exchange funds it, but it brings a price in which you can lose everything much, much closer to your actual price that you put in. So for example, let's say you're buying Bitcoin at 100,000 and you want to leverage it to 100x. It takes it away that you could lose everything at 98,000. So yeah, so I was thinking that I was a big time YouTuber. I'd been in this market for a while. I was a seasoned investor and pro at all this. I lost $10,000 in about 17 seconds, which I don't recommend to anyone, by the way. It's definitely not a good thing. It's very humbling. It's it's hard just telling your wife that you've lost $10,000 on a cryptocurrency. That was the hardest bit. And I've always stood by this sentiment. And I will always stand by this sentiment. Whether it's losing it in a meme coin, whether it's been scammed, of which fortunately it's only been a couple of times. It's only a waste of money if you don't learn something from it. It's an expensive learning curve. But at that point, for me, I've never traded high leverage ever again. So I always trade low leverage. I always avert risk rather than take on risk. So, as long as you learn something of anything, and we're still evolving this space, we're still really new to it. As long as you learn something, it can be an expensive learning curve, but at the same time, worth it in the future. And I always stand by. I wouldn't be the person I am today. I wouldn't be the investor I am today. I wouldn't be the content creator I am today if I hadn't have lost my money in BitConnect, hadn't done that trade, hadn't picked a bad meme coin, hadn't picked a good meme coin. So, but yeah, I try not to go over too much, too much of those.
You touched upon it just there, but obviously because you are married and you do have a family, when you told your wife this, bearing in mind she's seen you go through the high and you did quite well in the 2021 bull run, then she's seen the bear market, not quite understanding what's going on, and then you tell her that actually I've lost a huge amount of money. What was her reaction?
Yeah, I mean, it couldn't have been a worse time. Many people know that we were actually having an extension built on our house as well. So that money was earmarked for, it was earmarked for something else. Again, though, I go back to my very first point in which I've only ever invested money that's come from personal investments, personal gain. So I've always stood on a number of rules, which is I never invest anything out of anything that's to do with our house, our kids, us as a couple. So although, yes, it was earmarked, although, yes, it was a substantial amount of money, and I would never belittle that amount of money, by the way, because it was a lot of money. I was always conscious that actually that didn't then mean that we couldn't pay the bills the day after. It didn't mean that we couldn't afford to go and buy groceries or put fuel in the car. It was just probably 2 years of hard work, dedication, understanding, building this portfolio of capital that I could use, and then, gone in the space of a minute. So yeah, I mean, naturally, she was kind of frustrated, but I think she was more frustrated because she'd earmarked it for some stuff in the house as opposed to the amount of money. Because I think if you're in this space for a long time, your perception of capital does become a little bit grey. I think it's difficult. Even now as a proud Yorkshireman, I would really struggle paying £7 for a meal deal in a supermarket because I think it's an absolute rip-off. But I wouldn't think twice about putting $1,000 into a meme coin. I just wouldn't even think twice about it. So yeah.
That's so true. Oh my gosh. Okay, so 2023, we hit the bear market. Sorry, we hit the bear market bottom in 2022. I think it was November 2022.
Yeah.
The price started to climb up in 2023. Did anything happen in 23 that you want to mention before we go on to 2024?
Yeah, so 23 was a year of just building education, really trying to just set in and get ready for the bull market. We knew it was coming. I'd certainly researched the cycle, so I was really clear on where it was going. You could sort of see a change in the market. All of a sudden, the friend that never spoke about Bitcoin was curious about it. So you could feel something was starting to come, certainly towards fruition, and starting to kind of build out as that would look. So yeah, 2023 was a good year again, just for sort of being ready, working hard, really trying to build communities, educate yourself as much as possible, ready for, I think, what everyone deemed was going to be the big one, which was obviously 2024.
Okay, so let's talk about 2024, last year. So obviously a halving year. After the halving year, we have the parabolic bull run. People like to build in the halving year. It was we lived through it. It was a good year for Bitcoin. Bitcoin went from, I think it was like 38,000 US dollars. It made an all-time high before the halving, but the actual high was 108,000 US dollars. Trump ran on crypto. He became president. We had the ETFs being approved. A lot of legitimacy was added to crypto. A lot of institutions came into crypto. Silly things happened, like Germany sold, I don't know, like 50,000 in Bitcoin, which was absolutely ridiculous. But apart from that, it was a decent year. What was 2024 like for you?
Yeah, so really similar, I guess, than what you could look at in terms of the price of Bitcoin. So it started off, relatively good. You could sort of feel a slight change in the market. There was definitely some optimism coming in. I remember live streaming, Trump at the Bitcoin conference, and all of a sudden it was everyone starting to talk about Bitcoin. I started to become really interested in people like Michael Saylor. Okay, why are they buying so much Bitcoin? Why are they aggressively? And he did a speech at the Bitcoin conference that, really sort of ignited something in me in 2024, where he talked about nation states and he talked about the longer term subjectiveness of Bitcoin, i.e. there isn't going to be enough for the number of people that are going to want it. And then the channel started to really kind of get some traction. And more importantly, then we were starting to see these gains. We were understanding what was going on with the markets. We were really kind of in a euphoric stage. But at the same time, there was always this underpinning, looming shadow in the form of Gary Gensler 9 times out of 10. But there was always this kind of sense that it was a bit much, and it was a bit quick, and we probably shouldn't have been doing what we were doing based on all my years of experience in the market, based on many other people. So it almost was a bit too soon for the bull market. Everyone was kind of going a bit crazy. And then you sort of, you allow yourself a little bit into this hype of, oh, here it is. Like, this is where Bitcoin's going to 1 million. We're all going to make, crazy amounts of money. And then, my community and I were sort of drawn into the hype. We were really set for the bull market. We were really comfortable. And then I thought I'd take on something else and launch my own project. So, I mean, why not? Why not? You might as well just add that to the list of things as well.
Tell me about that.
Yeah, so I'd have to take you back to the bear market of 2022, 2023, where you could join a YouTube channel. Everyone was going, oh, the market's down, everything's going to zero, I've lost all this money. And I was like, I'm just, my glass is half full all the time. I'm never a half empty kind of person. And we used to just try and lighten the mood a little bit. I always enjoyed live streaming. I always enjoyed connecting with people, connecting with the community. So, so we started to sort of build this project out. And I stood by my statement that I made when I first did my first ever video on YouTube, which is I wouldn't monetize my community. So any donations that came in, any kind of things people wanted to donate to the channel, I just wanted to give it back. I wanted to give it back to people in the community. I wanted to give it back to people that, were maybe less fortunate. For example, 2023, back into that, we paid for a full school to have Christmas dinners and did all that kind of stuff, just out of the channel, because it was just a good thing to do. So we sort of did this marble racing game, and we sort of then started to give away some prizes, a little bit of merch, and then it sort of just evolved from that. And then we decided to launch on the base chain and launch a project. I think today we've given them back in winnings and donations about $28,000 over the course of the last sort of couple of years. It continues to do so. It once again opens up some doorways to other things, and it's fun. It's another part of this sort of ecosystem that I think if you're going to be involved in and understand, then it's great to kind of be part of it. And so launched that in 2024. It's still going today. Very much still building. It's hard. It is definitely hard work, but I mean, what isn't in life? Hard work's part of every day that we do. Many people do the 9 to 5. I still unfortunately do the 9 to 5. One day, hopefully it won't be. That's just part of life. It's who we are. And, I think anything we can do that supports that, I'm always for. So that's where the project came out of.
Okay. Let's talk about your community. I found you almost through your community. So I was just scrolling through YouTube. I came across your live, and I was in the chat, and I absolutely loved it. Your community is amazing. They're so funny. They are really, really funny. They're so welcoming, and they're so kind and generous. Tell me about them.
Yeah, I mean, I've always stood by a moral of treat others how you want to be treated. My parents, I would say, brought me up well. I think it's just a good way to live your life. I don't think it's worth being bitter about things. I don't think it's wishing ill on other people. So the community has been sort of built around that, which is just do good things and do good by other people. We started an investment portfolio on the channel, of which 5 people are invested in that. I run that as well as part of the channel. But I always say this, and I say it on my spaces at my YouTube channel: be part of a community, because you'll have much more fun. You'll make more money. If you just don't want to do anything other than just make money in this space, surround yourself by people that, if you've got 10 people looking at a chart, or you've got 10 people interacting with, other people, they're looking in other communities, they're part of other coins. It's just easier to bring it back. But then if any of my community message me, if any influencer message, whoever messaged me, I'll always respond. I just like connecting with people. I know I'd message you and I was like, let's do later on. Let's get together. Let's have a conversation. Like, I think it's such a good space to be involved in. And at the same time, I just don't tolerate anything that I deem as inappropriate. So, if you don't want to make anyone feel welcome to the channel, and I always talk about it as a we, an our, it's never an I and a me. It's always, the channel's part of everyone. It's somewhere to go for everybody on an evening. And people do as well. So I've met a couple of the community members. I've actually been to their house, and we've kind of met up socially as well on the back of it. after they were vetted, by the way. I wanted to just be really clear about that. Made sure that I knew where I was going and that was going to be okay. But yeah, I think great people, that are aligned to a shared goal, you can just have loads of fun. B, you can really understand this market because, not everyone's good at everything. And if you surround yourself by people that generally do better things, in my job, I call it the real world, but you surround yourself with people that are better at your job than you because it makes your job easier. And that's kind of where the community came from. And yeah, they've steadfast, and we sort of built all the way through the bear market. And we're looking forward to, as a community, really reaping the benefits of being involved in this bull market right now.
Awesome. No, they're absolutely lovely. Okay, so that was last year. A lot happened. Let's talk about this year. So 2025. Little bit ever so slightly disappointed. As last year, for example, we had an alt season in Q1, a tiny alt season in Q4. This year, it's not really what we're expecting from a parabolic bull run year. How are you navigating 2025, and how has 2025 been for you so far?
Yeah, 2025 right now has probably been the best 5 months I've ever had in cryptocurrency, whether that be socially, financially, and I think all of the hard work that we've done over a number of the last couple of years really is beginning to pay off. And I don't just mean the fact that we are seeing Bitcoin break new all-time highs, that's great. Obviously, we're still waiting for the altcoin market to move, but just some connections that I've made, some people that have sort of come into my life, I guess, in this kind of space. So, and then equally from a financial benefit, I've taken all the sort of learnings from the last number of years, profit taking just as a really simple way is just much smoother than it's ever been. I'm really comfortable. I'm talking about laddering in and laddering out of projects. I'm really clever where I do in terms of how and when you take profits. So yeah, so far 2025 for me, the best year yet. And I do stand by the fact I think there's more to come as well. I know that people got shaken out in these markets. Once you understand that, again, we've become the small fish in the big pond again as ETFs come in. We know BlackRock buying billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin. As long as you understand you'll never win the game, but you can certainly win your little part of it, all of a sudden it just becomes an easier game to play. And I think, we've got a good six months ahead of us. Certainly, 2026 looks like it could be pretty interesting as well. So far, so good, and long may it continue, I think.
So what's next for you? You've achieved so much. You've had so much experience. You've had a lot of success. What's next for you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really keen to understand, kind of market dynamics, how they work. I'm really keen to see how this market shifts. I've set myself a goal of, sort of dialing down my 9 to 5 and really repositioning myself into a more kind of cryptocurrency focused environment. I really want to continue to work hard in terms of my YouTube and my brand specifically. What does that look like? Working really hard with the project, connecting with a number of different people. So yeah, busy year, I think, ahead. But really exciting. And I think it's difficult to find something you enjoy that can also finance your life. And I think that's what motivates me. And the fact that I invest into cryptocurrency for my kids, and they're quite young kids, but I invest for the future of those. And you see that outperform a traditional banking ISA or whatever it is, it motivates me even more. And then you get, and it's not very often this happens. I'm sure you're in the same boat, but every now and then you just get a message from someone saying, hey, I watched one of your videos. I invested in this coin, or I took this coin out, or I sold when you told me to, and it changed this, or I could buy this for my kids. Do you know what? That's what motivates me more than anything. And I still don't have memberships, and I still don't have paid Patreons and all that sort of stuff. And I think, this year, I think if people play the cards right, people are sensible in this market, people absolutely take profits and understand what this market's going to do. I truly think you're on the cusp of a completely financial shift in this market. And anyone that's in now, or that has been in over the last 2 years, play your cards right. And I think you'll come out of the other side of it with more money than you probably could have fathomed that you would have had a number of years ago. And I think that opportunity is in front of all of us. Some will get it, some won't. I would always stand by, surround yourself with good people, connect with a number of people. I would love to be, going to the Bitcoin conference and doing all that kind of stuff. I got invited out to a number of conferences over the last couple of months. So that's where I want to kind of pivot my job, my 9-to-5 job, into a much more, Web3 kind of environment. So that's the goal this year, and hopefully break 50,000 subscribers on YouTube.
So just quickly, just before we go, tell me about the children, because I know you've got 3. Do they ever watch Daddy YouTube, and do they know what crypto is?
Yeah, so I've got, and many people know this on the channel, it's kind of like one of those weird vlogs where a lot of people do it. I'm very conscious about the kids' anonymity. I'm always very conscious about, no one knows what they're called. It's not I don't think it's my place to say that, but yeah, if it comes on the TV and, I mean, they don't want to watch me. I can't believe it though. My own kids don't want to watch one of my live streams, but yeah, I think they understand. They're really fascinated by YouTube. They're fascinated the fact that I can be in the room and be on the TV at the same time. And I think, look, going back to my parents, they were very traditional in what they did. They didn't put a lot of money away. I definitely didn't come from any sort of wealthy background whatsoever. I'd like to think in a number of years, when I truly believe that digital currency will change the way we operate financially, that my kids are going to be one of those that'll be at the forefront of it. And occasionally they'll kind of come and sit here with the microphone and I record them and do all the rest of it. But yeah, my missus, who is the boss in our household, was explicit in the fact that they are never to go live on YouTube. So I have actually put one of them on a live. I tried to do a live stream with a screaming 3-week-old baby, which, it doesn't work. Absolutely doesn't work.
Oh my God, that's so cute. Okay, awesome. 2-Bit, it was absolutely amazing having you on the channel and learning your crypto story. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much. And good luck in this bull market.
Thank you.